Welcome to Inner Glow Sessions. I am Angie Hawkins, the Inner Glow Coach, and today I have special guest Amanda Graham. Amanda has written 23 episodes of TV on BBC and Apple and edited scripts and ghostwritten pitch decks for 90 plus film and TV development projects, including for the BBC, Channel 4, and Zero Gravity Group. She has two of her own projects with Olivia Colman and Ed Sinclair's Indie South of the River, including one with Olivia Colman and director Tristan Shapiro. She has a working partnership and multiple projects in development with Shapiro and several projects in development with ex-stuntwoman/director JD Duffield and Disney Cartoon Network animation legend Travis Blaze. She also writes for Visionality and two international stand-up comedians. She's also an award-winning speaker who teaches how to network and a disability consultant working with the Institute of Neurodiversity in Geneva, Switzerland. She published her irreverent self-help book, Good Stuff to Read When You're About to Lose Your Shit, in April. Amanda is a BFTA Connect member, AP Star, Writers Guild member, and was selected for both BFI, BFTA Crew in 2021 and Ed's TV Fest One to Watch in 2018 and 2019. Please welcome Amanda Graham. Let's get into the interview. Welcome, Amanda, and let me know if I pronounced any of that wrong so I can edit it.
No, that's absolutely fine. It's a pleasure to be here, and now everybody knows why I'm so tired because I'm doing all that.
Well, at first I was like, that's a lot, but I'm like, but she's accomplished a lot, so I want to read all of it.
It's a
Welcome.
pleasure. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I'll just tell us about yourself, and then we'll go from there, like where you're from, your backstory, all of it.
I feel like I'm David Copperfield all of a sudden. I'm born, I know I don't sound like it, but born in England, spent some time in the States, and then I've been back about 25 years. I started off doing comedy about 15 years ago, like stand-up, and got discovered doing stand-up, and then started writing comedy scripts, and everything just kind of took off from there. But what's really odd is I've learned over this journey of like 10 or 15 years that the things that you are meant to do, you kind of already feel like you're supposed to do. And I think it's just about letting life lead you toward the way you're supposed to get there. And so I try and make all of the decisions that I make in life that align with this journey that I'm supposed to be on. And so that seems like the most important thing. And to make sure to like take people on the journey with me and to help them along, so they can find their paths as well.
Did you have an early experience, though, of life forcing you on your path because you were resisting it?
Uh, it's odd. I would say that like my current path in terms of like the comedy side of things, I've always been obsessed with comedy. My dad, raised me on Monty Python, and my mom loved Jonathan's Carol Burnett, those
Yeah.
types of shows. And so I loved all that type of stuff. And then when we were about 10 or 11, my mother got involved, like my mother got us involved in a cult church. And then obviously all of the comedy kind of was not allowed. So we used to sneak comedy, you know, to
Yeah.
uh, to kind of channel some happiness of some kind or another. And then what I generally write about and what is important to me is rebelling against power systems, rebelling against people who don't deserve to be in power. And so, because of the cult. And so those were the things, funnily enough, that got me started, on this journey from my childhood. So yeah.
That makes a lot of sense because, like, when we talked before, I was involved with the Second City Chicago with a sketch comedy writing program, and a lot of extremely famous people have gone through
Yes,
Second City
it is
training
very
program.
famous.
So what I've learned is that a lot of comedians, their humor comes from dark places. Have you found that in your experience?
Oh, 100%. And what's odd is, so there's like an old quote from Robin Williams that comedians do what they do because they know what it's like to feel
Yeah,
really terribly, and they don't want other people to um, feel the same way. And I wholeheartedly believe that.
same.
But until about a year ago, and strangely, a story that I wrote when I was 12 for English class popped in my head. I had completely forgot about it. And it's about a goldfish in the woods. Travis and I are working on an animation for it and a book and everything. But what's really odd is that this goldfish lives, I'm going somewhere with this. The goldfish
Yeah.
lives in the woods and she's in a goldfish bowl, and she wants to be taken out of the woods. She doesn't know why she's there. She's just always been there. And she gets this brilliant idea that if she is funny enough and she tells jokes, then somebody will pick her up and take her home with them. And I thought that was really odd. Like I thought, oh God, like at 12 years old, when I was writing clearly a story about myself being isolated and bullied because I was autistic. I didn't know I was autistic. I wasn't diagnosed
Mm.
until a few years ago. But and then the realization came to me that it wasn't just that I wanted other people to feel amazing. It was that I was using comedy to explain myself to people and to help people see that I'm somebody who they might want to keep, which is just so sad. But I think if more comedy writers and comedians were honest, that they would say that as well.
No, I agree. And also, first of all, I love that story because I think a lot of us, because I always felt like I didn't belong in my environment, but
Yeah.
I didn't know any different. It was just this feeling. So I really love that story because it's really symbolic of sometimes like something is all you ever known, but you also have to learn to follow the feeling of your heart. But also, like the fish out of water metaphor, that's used a ton in comedy. So maybe it's
Really
all
is.
related somehow.
100%. And it was something that struck me about your book as well. Like, it's so weird. I was just having this conversation. I am a big believer. There's that saying, wherever you go, there you are.
Yep.
And I guess that can be true sometimes, but I also believe that your environment can really shape who you are and how you see the world and what your opportunities are. And if you feel like you're in an unhealthy environment where it isn't structured and it doesn't serve you, and you know you're supposed to be somewhere else, you have got to kick and claw yourself to where you know you're supposed to go. I am a big believer that sometimes it's just literally going to somewhere where you're valued,
Yep.
versus staying in a place where you're not understood.
On that note, do you
Mhm.
feel comfortable talking about your experience with the cult?
Sure. There's some things I can't talk about, but
That's
I can talk
okay.
about just about everything. Yeah.
Because I think that's also symbolic because just from the way you started the story, it sounds like you were under 18, so you're still under your parents' guardianship, and your mom put you in that situation, but then there was a point where you were able to break free. So I'm extremely curious in that journey.
Well, I need to clarify that my parents had already long split by the time that we were, so this was just my mom.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and we had already been in strict fundamentalist churches for a year or two. And then we moved to upstate New York. And after about, I don't know, half a year in another church, we found this church that had an incredibly charismatic leader. He had a big pompadour and he would wear these very cheap suits from the 70s that were like mint green polyester. And he was a very strange man, and he had a trumpet and he would preach and play the trumpet at the same time. And he was definitely someone who controlled everything. And so our lives changed very quickly when we fell in with that church. So all of the typical love bombing, all of the
Mm,
typical, like we were there just about every night of the week. We weren't allowed to wear trousers, even though it was upstate New York in the winter. When we as girls were taught, when we were 11 or 12 to breastfeed, and be homemakers while the boys were outside doing whatever they wanted, playing sports and stuff. It was very frustrating for me. And then if we fell out of line, like I was forced into counseling because I was, as the pastor put it, a rebellious jean jacket wearing Jezebel um, at 12 or 13. And so, and we were to find out later that, well, he had sexually abused so many women in the church, and the way
Mm.
he was doing it through the counseling. And so, yeah. And
Oh,
so he had, yeah. And so that's what ended up happening was, somebody told the deacon board what was going on, and he was threatening people's families, threatening to kill them. And then he finally wrote it down. And so they took it to the deacon board and said, "Do you believe us now that he's a lunatic?" And so they confronted him about it. And this involved my mother in terms of the truth coming out. And then the next thing we know, we were hiding in two different places. The first was when he brought a gun to try and talk to my mom, and we ended up having to call the police. And what was really crazy about it was we were at our friend's house, and we were all poor. You have to understand, like, well, none of us had any money,
yeah.
and we didn't have a phone, so we couldn't call the police. So we had to kind of quietly bang on the wall to get the neighbor to call the police, like through the wall, without
Hmm.
so loud that he would hear us outside.
Yeah.
And then we had to go into hiding at a farm until it all blew over. And what was odd was he left the church. That's not usually what happens. What usually happens in a big church split is that the leader stays. But I think because he had written all the stuff down and the threats, that forced him out. So he, until like this past year, he was still preaching. He was still preaching. He
What?
must be 90, he must be like 95 years old or something. So yeah, it was pretty terrifying. And there was a whole thing where they made all the women confess to sins in front of the whole church. And it was
Mm.
just diabolical. And I will never forget, I'd already thought about the way that that cult ran and how they treated women. It was so unfair to me. And with being autistic and justice sensitivity, it hits you like 10 times harder
Okay.
because you can't make sense of it.
Yeah.
And then I just vowed, I was like, I will never ever like allow anyone to be in this type of environment, like be subjected to this. Like this will be, you know, this will be something that will always be important to me. And so I've always tried to, whatever I do, um, follow that and call shit out.
Yeah,
So
we need more of that because I think what's scary to me about society as a whole is sheep mentality. And I think that's how, first of all, that's how cults get started. And that's how people
yeah,
like that can do that for that long.
yeah, yeah. I think if all of us got into the habit of saying no more. Now, I granted some people react, in a ridiculous way to
Yeah.
no. But I think it's one of these things where if all of us, even just in day to day, just started going, then I think that that would have a knock-on effect over a long period of time. And I think the days that we're living in right now, if you literally look at what's going on, are all because unchecked power
Yeah.
is just allowed to continue. And it frustrates me that there's so much of a sheep mentality. Because when you stand up for something, for what you believe in, or when you stand up for something yourself, the amazing thing is the sun rises the next day and the world keeps turning. Like,
No,
so
I totally
it's,
agree. Like it seems like this big scary thing. And like to your point, it's not always emotionally or even physically safe to speak up, but sometimes it is, and it's just the story that we're telling ourselves in our head about how scary it is. And yeah, I wish there was more of a culture of doing it when it is emotionally and physically safe.
yeah, I think well, no, I don't think it's down to the need for, well, the fear we have of being isolated from our community. So like when
Yeah.
we were early humans, we were in tight-knit communities, and so being rejected from the community for being different or whatever else would mean our death essentially, because we would be expelled, right? And so
Hmm.
and we still have that kind of old cave person brain like lodged in there. And so that is part of it. But I think, we've come long enough where we can at least talk ourselves into, okay, maybe there is a situation where I can say no today. It might not be every situation, but surely there are a few situations. And then if I can't outwardly say no, maybe I can do something to fuck shit up or subvert it anyways, you know?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point because it doesn't necessarily have to be like this big dramatic gesture. There could be smaller things that you could do. And also, like to your point, just practicing with lower stake situations, saying no or speaking up helps a lot in having that practice and building the confidence.
100%. Yeah.
So, what are some long-term effects the cult had on you?
Well, besides a lifelong distrust of fundamentalist churches, um, um, I think, it was really odd because it wasn't until the past, say, even though it happened in 1984, 85, when it exploded, it wasn't until the maybe 4 years ago that I really came to terms with how bad that was. I don't know if you can relate to this. You might be able to, Angie, but um, I think there's a lot of us who, when we have terrible things in our lives that are so normalized, we tell these stories laughing, like, wasn't that crazy that that happened? You see people around you going, no, that's horrific. And then
Yeah.
you go, oh God, it was so normal to me, like I knew it was like bad, but like I didn't know how bad. And I think I kind of carried that, oh yeah, I'm weird and I'm this and I'm that, and that's okay. I've survived so much, but I really didn't realize until my kid kind of got to the age I was, and I saw how vulnerable and young he was, and it just made me think, oh, like I can't believe I was his age when I was going through that. That is crazy. And I think you develop a compassion if you decide to have children, you develop a kind of compassion that for yourself, if you had, a messed up childhood or whatever, and it really puts a different spin on things, I think. So I think absolutely like feeling incredibly protective of children and without a doubt, always questioning power when it needs to be questioned. And that has gotten me in trouble. I mean, I cannot tell you how many people in my life have said, your mouth is going to get you killed. But, I've had just as many people say, when I've been the person to stand up in a meeting and go, I don't think that's right. That nobody backs you up. But then when you're in the next room, they go, thank you for saying something. Somebody had to say something. I'm that person. So I know I can be a pain in the ass, but I know that I'm the person who helps get something changed or I get fired. I don't know,
Yeah.
one or the other, essentially. So, I think there's lots of us who are like that, who do stand up, and we pay the price sometimes. But I think the advantage is the people who are in my life now are the people who would do the same thing.
Yep.
And
No,
that is a
yeah.
magnificent thing.
That is so relatable. That was kind of my downfall in corporate America because started my healing journey in earnest when I was still in corporate America, but I started to see the disconnect between like, this isn't really what I want to be doing. So I started just not caring as much and I started to be the one who spoke up, and in a corporate America system that is not welcome at all. Like I
Oh,
had a
no.
manager at one point, she basically told me like, do not speak up. And it's like, okay, that's when I knew my time there was coming to an end. I was like, I can't live my life like this.
They love their hierarchies, don't they? And they
Yep.
don't even care if you work. They don't care what you do, as long as you don't do anything to question the
Yep.
hierarchy.
Yep.
That's why so many people in a corporate environment don't work. They don't do anything. You wonder what they do all the time. As long as they're just falling in line and kissing ass and doing whatever, that's all the whole thing runs on. It's bananas.
I know. And it's actually terrifying because when I quit, it was almost like this light bulb went off and exposed the whole system. Because I
Uh,
was in it for so long, but when you're in the weeds, you're not seeing all of it. But like it was basically the day I quit, I was like, this is like scary that I was so like brainwashed and in this system like that. And now I see it for what it is.
yeah. It's like, I hate to use the term matrix, you know what I mean? But it really is like,
No, it is.
it's misused a lot, but like, but it really is like, it's like once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah, and that's what it is, because it's kind of like I wanted to not pay attention to it, but then I had no choice. And yeah, and then there's no going back.
No going back. No way. You can't put yourself back in there. It's imprisoning yourself.
Yes. So before we started recording, we were talking about your shirt because it's a very beautiful butterfly shirt. What is your cocoon moment where you broke out of your cocoon and really started living life as you?
Oh, well, I think I had had this misconception that like when you go through a really rough patch, and I call the last decade of my life the wilderness, and I felt very lost, and one of those things where you can only see a couple feet in front of you, and that's as far as you can maneuver. There are no plans. There's just no way out, and there's no one to help you, or at least it feels that way. Um, and I thought that there would be some moment where all of a sudden everything would shift. But what cocooning, it's almost like you're it's this goo for like this very long time, just like a caterpillar, and but it's not like you emerge in one day. It's like you think you're going to get out a little, but then it pulls you back in, and then you think you're out a little bit more, and then it pulls you back in, and then I think I've noticed over the past couple of months that there's been a shift. I can't explain it. I've just something said to me, I think it was about a month ago, you're going to get your smile back, which was like, oh, because it's
Yeah,
been absolutely brutal this 10 years. And it's so odd because even though I've been growing and healing, it's like life makes you deal with the hardest stuff when you're strongest enough from growth before you can go to the next stage of your life, right? So,
yeah,
you wouldn't have been able, when you first started healing, you wouldn't have been able to handle the really dark stuff, right? You
yeah.
have to deal with the little things first. And then it's like a mine, like you have to dig deeper and deeper. It's like scar tissue. You have to get out there before you get to the real injury, the real stuff. And so I think you don't really come out of the cocoon until you get through the ugly crying, the snot bubbles, the the really depth pits of hell type of the bottom of your barbecue when you haven't cleaned it in a year, that type of stuff,
That's such a
like
good analogy.
and then you're a butterfly. Then you're ready to get out because you can't fly if you've still got everything weighing you down. Butterflies don't have little ankle weights on them, do they? So, so whenever I talk to people about healing and starting a new phase in your life, I'm always like, you're very lucky if it happens in one shift, but usually you think you're there and then something pulls you back, and then you have to go through another phase, and whatever. So it's like a process versus like, a startling moment.
Yeah, I love that. And I have two things on that. Have you
Yes, please.
ever bought or witnessed, I think they're called Crystallis. It's the cocoon with a butterfly. There's a company here, they sell them. So I bought one time at a market and and there's instructions. It's like after two to three
What do you have
days.
to do with it?
Well, like after you don't really have to do anything. After 2 to 3 days, it emerges and it comes in this little, like, I don't want to say cage, but yeah, basically. And then you just like release it out into the wild. So in my mind, I'm like, in 2 to 3 days, it's gonna emerge, and then I'm gonna go out in the wild and release it. Well, I think it took like 4 to 5 days, which isn't that much longer, but it wasn't like exactly as planned. And then I took it out into the wild and I released it, and it sat in the grass for like 45 minutes. And I was like, oh my God, what's wrong with it? Like, I just assumed like something was wrong with it. It was sick or whatever. And like, no exaggeration, like after, yeah, maybe 45 minutes, it just flew off and that was it. And, but my point is, I was so attached to like how it should be because I was going exactly by the instructions. And then once it happened, I was like, well, duh, it's not going to go exactly as planned. Like, it's not life, it's a living thing and it's like doing it on its own time. So that was actually like a good lesson in our own journeys.
Oh, that's gorgeous. And you got to see her like trying to figure stuff out before she could go anywhere. And
But I
that's
was like,
that's
what's
so
wrong with you?
lovely.
But also, I can't remember if we talked about this before. Would you consider what you're going through a dark night of the soul? Have you even heard of that term?
Yeah, no, without a doubt. So I had a dark night of the soul, a very
Okay.
specific one. And now I had only heard of that phrase from John of the Cross, right? So he is this Spanish, uh, 15th or 16th century mystic, and he wrote this big poem about it. I studied mystics in my grad work, so I was very aware of them. I didn't know about the modern usage of it at all. And I went through, so probably 8 years ago, uh, my life had totally collapsed. Complete. There was not a single bit of my life, except my gorgeous son. There was not a single bit of my life that was going well. And nothing was working. And no matter how I tried, I couldn't get it. And I just felt like I had lost faith in everything, everyone. And I was up, my bedroom is upstairs, and it was like December, like about, maybe a couple weeks ago, but 8 years ago. And I was tossing and turning in my bed, and I was like, I cannot go on. And I was like, I don't even know who I'm praying to. I don't even know if there is anyone, but I cannot feel please, I am begging you. I need some direction. I need something to keep me going because there's nothing right now that's working.
Yeah.
So I just prayed for some type of thing. And then I went through this very funny process of realizing what it was and then kind of finding a map, an 8 year long map out of it. But it's interesting that you should bring up the Dark Night of the Soul thing. Is that something you went through it at a particular moment, or did you have a couple different moments where that happened for you?
I had a particular moment. I won't give it away because it's in my book,
Okay,
and
good.
I know
I
you're
haven't
reading
gotten
my
to that
book,
yet.
but there something happens towards the end, and and that's what I call my healing journey in earnest because I hit an emotional rock bottom, and I was faced with this moment in my life where I realized that I had been playing the victim because it's like all these things were happening to me, and I was like, well, this is just how it is, and I'm helpless against it, and that's what had contributed to the situation. So I was faced with this moment where it's like, okay, I can keep living like that, or I can take some agency over my life and actually make some changes and live my life in a better way. So I invested in myself and I hired a coach and I started making those changes. But for me, it was kind of like breaking out of the societal matrix because I broke out of that before I broke out of the corporate America system. But I just started seeing things and I started just questioning, like, what are we even doing here? Because I don't know, I just started questioning everything. And it lasted for like 2 years. And even though I was healing and going through things, I would still have these waves of like depression and sadness because I
Mhm.
was seeing the world for what it is. And to some of the points that we were talking about earlier, it is not all sunshine and rainbows. And there is a lot of stuff going on, like the herd mentality and stuff like that. So I just became very jaded about society. And I had seen things and that I couldn't unsee. And luckily it was kind of on the tail end of COVID, so there weren't a lot of like in-person things going on. But I was in pure hermit mode because I just couldn't even stand being around other people because I was so jaded by society. But
Mhm.
it eventually went away. I don't know why. Like I was just doing my normal healing work with my coach.
Yeah.
So that probably contributed to it, but I had no idea what a dark night of the soul was. I
Yeah.
was just like, what am I going through? And I must have been Googling or something, and it
Mhm.
came up, and I'm like, yep, this is it.
Yeah, that it's so funny because when I had prayed and just asked for something, because nothing was making any sense, I came downstairs the next day and I put on YouTube because I kind that's my go-to.
Yeah.
And then for the first time ever, one of those motivational videos came up, where there's sports people running and people are saying very dramatic words. And then I recognized Steve Jobs' voice. And he goes, and you can tell he's like speaking at something because you can hear a kind of reverb on the mic or like an echo on the mic. And he's like, so I've got something for everyone who's tried very hard and nothing's working and you don't understand where life is going and why it is. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, that's exactly. Okay, so I was just like paying attention. I was like, yes, I'm listening. And then he goes, so this is one thing that you must know. And I was like, yes, okay, tell me, Steve Jobs. Oh my God, what is it? And he goes, it's only when you get to the other side that you can look back and connect the dots and everything. And I was like,
That's
that's
it.
it. Dots, dots. So I got really mad. No, I do want to say he was right, and that's what I ended up writing the
Yeah.
book about. But you don't think that at the time because you're like in the middle of it. When you're like in a fog, like you dots, like I already know that I don't know what the dots are. That's not. So I Googled a lot as well, like what can I do? How I can't go on like this.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I was reading a bunch of stuff. There was oh God, what was the name of that book that I read? Shocked or Lifequake. So I read a book called Lifequake, which was amazing. It was about the dark night of the soul that we experience as people, usually in our 40s. And so I read that, and then I saw something about gratitude. Now, this was something. Now, when we were in the church, we were always taught to give thanks and whatever. And I had always learned to be appreciative, but I had never had a gratitude practice. And so I thought, oh, and so they said, look, just do a little, create a space. And then if just three things, you can find three things you've got, even if it's that you've got a roof over your head, even that there hasn't a tsunami hasn't just happened outside your house. You can find
Yeah.
three things to be grateful about. So those bookshelves over there, my son and I cleared out a shelf, and then we put on our favorite things. And then we
Oh,
sat
I love
there
that.
every day, and we would say three things that we were grateful for. And it was at first I was just like, this is some bullshit, because I still knew my life was a mess. But I
Yeah.
would say probably a couple weeks into it, I started noticing the shift and the appreciation. And then this was the radical shift for me, was realizing that the good things could happen, not just the good things could happen, but the good things could happen to me, specifically to me, for me, right? Not just for other people and
Yeah.
whatever. And that was a gift. And so I expanded that out into meditation and sometimes it's so odd because I've been doing this for like 8 years now. And sometimes I just forget to do the gratitude thing. And
Yeah.
I forget like one day or two because maybe I'm having a busy couple of days or whatever. And then I literally forget, thank you, ADHD. I literally forget that I've been doing that for 8 years. And then I'll find I'm off the course a little bit. And then I'm like, what's missing? Like, I don't, what am I doing wrong? And then I'm like, oh God, I haven't done a gratitude thing in how
Yeah.
long? So, but that was the thing that really started shifting things for me. It's amazing because without gratitude, you can't see synchronicities. And without synchronicities, you can't get guidance. So at least that's my experience of it. I don't know if yours is similar, but
No, I totally agree because even in my darkest times, it's like you need something
mhm,
because I've been in a place of pure hopelessness and it's such a dangerous place to be. And
mhm,
when you're in those dark times, it is possible to feel feelings at a higher vibration. And this is another thing I've learned because I used to not understand the concept of like feeling sad and happy at the same time or feeling sad and feeling gratitude at the same time. So even just as, and I'm calling it a simple practice just because it's so easy to do, but it's so powerful because I also have a gratitude practice. It just
mhm,
helps you, even if you're having a shitty day or whatever's going on in your life, it just gives you that opportunity to feel something good and just bask in that, even if it's just for a few minutes and then you can go back to feeling like shit. But it just conditions you to like, I deserve this. It's available to me. Because that's another powerful shift because I used to feel unhappy and fulfilled most of the time. And I didn't even think anything was available that, anything happy and fulfilling was even available to me. So it's a simple practice in that it's easy to do, but it's so powerful because it just opens up yeah, all of these shifts and breakthroughs that you can have with it.
Oh, 100%. Like people don't realize that like life, especially if you're going through the wilderness, does a number on your nervous system. And
Yes.
and that could be from childhood or from terrible circumstances that you've had over a while. And your nervous system will literally not it makes your brain not accept that good things can happen or that you can feel better or what it just doesn't
It doesn't feel
trust it
safe.
because it's been in the chaos for so long. And so that's why those little moments, even if at first you don't believe in it or whatever else, like you have to give your brain enough space to understand that there is something good that can happen because that you're literally naming good things that are happening, even if they aren't powerful enough to change your circumstances right now, right? So it's like kind of resetting. It's like resetting a fuse, you
Yeah.
know, like that's all it is. Yeah, it's so important for a million reasons.
No, I love that you brought up nervous system because I usually talk about nervous system a lot because yes, like you're a lot. I was conditioned for a long time because of my childhood and then because of corporate America and other things. Like I was always in this hyper aroused state. And unknowingly, I would be attracted to things like having a gratitude practice or being in nature or whatever. And it was because it was so grounding to my nervous system. So even
Mhm.
for that reason alone, it's very powerful.
Oh God, yeah. Anything that will get you to reset your if you can find anything that makes you not realize that you're happy until you're already in the middle of it. So for me, like probably besides spending time with my son or like, the people who I love, obviously, is dogs. If I see a dog
Mm,
or pet a dog, probably horses as well. Well, all animals. I really do love all animals, but dogs, there is something about just petting and loving a lovely dog, that just makes me like all of a sudden I am completely out of whatever the circumstances are. And uh, you don't feel that hyper awareness. You can literally be in the moment. And when you live in that state of hyper awareness, you don't get to live in the moment
yeah.
ever. So yeah, it's about grounding yourself, walks in the woods, or listening to a particular piece of music that makes you feel a certain way, or smelling a certain scent or whatever. But just to have those moments where yeah, you can take a break from the vigilance.
Yes.
Mm,
Yeah, I know. I always call it hypervigilance. And I like how
yeah.
you just said vigilance because even that word invokes like being on guard.
Oh God, yeah. And it's interesting. I love nervous system talk because I've been doing a lot more yoga that's targeted toward your nervous system. We have
Mm,
so much trapped in our bodies. And this is
yeah.
this isn't woo-woo. This is, Johns Hopkins, the best hospital in the US. They did a thing on this. They did a series on it about how when you're hypervigilant, Um, you know how like if you're tense, like you think something's going to happen, then your muscles tense up, and what happens is the adrenaline pumps through your body, but there's nowhere for the adrenaline to go. So all of that energy gets trapped in your psoas muscles, the ones like that connect
Yes.
your
I
hips
used
to
to
your
have really
leg.
tight psoas and that
Yep.
explains it.
Your neck, there are different places where it's trapped, and so they have developed yoga. So it's called somatic yoga to help
Oh,
you release the trauma that's been stuck in your body from hypervigilance.
I need to look that up.
It's
I
incredible.
got out of a yoga practice,
I mean,
but
you don't have to do yoga. You can start with vagus nerve stimulation, which is this nerve here. Because, when you're tense,
oh yeah. I
particularly
used to
this
clench
side.
my jaw. I used to get, well, yeah, I used to get Botox in my jaw because when I finally decided I was like, okay, I'm going to stop clenching my jaw, it was impossible because my muscles were so tight. So to like get them unclenched, got Botox for several years so that I could finally like even just get out of that cycle.
Yeah, no, like you got to check it out. Like start with vagus nerve, but
Okay.
the Johns Hopkins course, it's on YouTube. It's totally free.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, it's like 20 or 30, 22 days or 28 days, something like that. It's a godsend. It only
Yeah.
takes like 2 minutes. It's
Oh,
amazing.
perfect. Yeah, I love efficient things.
Me too.
So let's talk about autism.
Mm.
So how did you find out, or were there signs, like all of it?
It's really funny because like just about everybody in my family is neurodivergent in some way or another.
Mm,
And when my son got diagnosed, I noticed as he got older that he was so much like me. And I honestly, I had never thought that of the fact that I was autistic. I was always the weirdo. I was always the one who would talk too much about the things I was interested in. I was always the one that didn't respect hierarchies. I would always have cold sensitivities, food sensitivities, like light and, sensory seeking, all this stuff, textbook. But sorry, we've got this flu going on over here, so I do apologize. But when as he was growing up, I was like, yeah, that's me. And so I went to the GP and I said, can I get a referral, please, for autism? And she was like, why would you think you're autistic? And I was like, well, because just about everybody in my family's been diagnosed with something or other, and my son's been diagnosed. And she goes, she said, you don't seem autistic. And I was like, well, okay, but can I just get a referral, please? And I explained a couple things that kind of aroused my suspicion. So then I had to wait like 2 years on the waiting list.
just to be
And
clear, this is in America, right?
no, no, here, I've been back here 25 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So then the pandemic happened, the very first lockdown, and like I was evaluated over the phone. And
Okay.
you can't do it over. They talk to you, they talk to your family members, they talk to your friends from different times in your life.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they talk to loads of people. And so I did it. And when they talk to you, they're like, okay, so this is all over the phone, not even over Zoom or anything. So they're like, okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna ask you loads of questions. Just come up with what the first thing in your mind comes to, just whatever's most truthful. And I was like, okay. So then they ask loads of questions. It takes like an hour each time they call, and then that's done. Okay. So then they ring me, and this is probably a couple weeks into the first lockdown. And they go, oh yeah, your diagnosis is that you do have, ASD. And I was like, okay. And I was like, I knew it, like I knew it. And I knew they were going to say yes. And I said, and she said, oh, we knew within like 10 minutes of talking to you that you're autistic. And I was like, how did you know? And she said, well, because when we started the evaluation, you didn't ask us any questions about ourselves or turn any of the questions back on us. And I was like, why would I do that? You said, we're going to ask you questions and you have to answer them. And she was like, yeah, you followed the instructions literally. And I was like, wait, this is an evaluation for, for
Yeah.
me, like about autism. And you said, we're going to ask you, why would I turn the questions back on you? It's a,
Yeah,
like,
but
that
I
doesn't
think
even make
like
any
that
sense.
too. Maybe I should
And
get
she
evaluated.
was like, yep, that's what an autistic person says. And I was like,
Because I'm the same
what?
way. I never would have questioned that. Like, this is what we're doing. This is the agenda. I would have been like, okay, let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Like when you go to the doctors and they have the flu, you don't turn the medical questions back on the doctor. How's your knee? How's your lungs doing?
I,
It's so odd. So and she was like, nope, that's what they all say to us. And I was just like, that is the most. So it's not like, the food sensitivities. It's not the fact that my body shuts down when it's cold. The fact that I'm obsessed with super technical things. The fact that I really struggle, like in big group hierarchy things. Um, it's none of that. It's just the fact that I didn't ask you how your day was during my evaluation because I was following your instructions. I just thought that was the funniest thing. So, and then they send you to a support group, which because of lockdown was online. And so it
Mm.
was me and like, I don't know, 10, 19-year olds, right? And it was just me, Miss 48, and 10, 19-year olds. And they all said the same thing. They were all like, that makes no sense. And we were just laughing. We were laughing about the fact that all of us had that same experience. And also, all of us had been hit by a car, which is
Oh,
really funny as
really?
well. Yeah, like you're like 90% likely to be hit by a car, which we all had been hit by a
Like,
car.
as a pedestrian, you mean? Like, your
Yeah,
body
yeah,
got hit by a car? Oh
yeah,
my
yeah, yep,
gosh.
yeah.
Did you have brain damage because of that?
No, no, no.
Oh,
It
so
was
it's
just
not correlated.
No, no, no. It was just a stupid thing where I was crossing the street and I happened to be looking that way. It was like a really busy street in Manchester. And I just happened to be looking that way and I just got hit this way. And I ended up I didn't go to the hospital, but I ended up on their windshield with my head in the windshield, but my knee was trapped in the wheel well. It could have been a lot worse. It could have been a lot worse, but it was just hilarious that all of us discovered those things in common, like even though none of us knew each other and all of us lived in different places and whatever, it was hysterical.
I
So,
feel like
and
there
it's
might
great
be a
because
correlation though. I don't know. I don't
I
know what
think
that
it's
would
just
be.
not paying attention. It's not that we don't pay attention, it's just that sometimes if our brain is focused on certain stimuli, it just nothing else.
Mm.
So yeah, the hyper focus
Oh, that's so interesting.
every time.
But did it change anything in your day-to-day life, or you're just more
It
aware of
made
certain things?
it made things make a lot more sense about why I struggled with friend groups and
Mm.
not being understood. And I had already clearly, I didn't like, I had perceived that I was always silently breaking rules that I wasn't aware existed. Um, so yeah, and that always would bite me in the ass, you know. But so I learned not to be less autistic-y, but what I learned was to spend a lot more time with fellow neurotypicals, who we all have the exact same experience. And so you're not the weirdo, you're like around
Uh,
your gorgeous weirdos, and that's a pretty amazing feeling. So I think that's the biggest thing I learned. And then to lean into my autistic traits and to make a career out of that. And I'm not hiding it. I understand why some people do, because people think I was going to say people think we can't cross the street without getting hit by a car, but we all get hit by a car. So, but like people think you can't do anything, they think
mm,
you're not able to write on a piece of paper, you're not able to date, you're not able to do whatever. And that's really not what it is. So, but I thought, look, the jig is up. Everybody knows I'm a weirdo. I might as well just go, yep, this is what I'm going to do. You can like me, you can dislike me, and I'm going to make sure that I spend time with people who I vibe with. So, and
yeah.
that's what I'm looking to do with it.
I've learned to embrace my quirks, and I feel like life gets a lot easier when you just accept things.
Yeah. Do you think that comes like with it? I know you're much younger than me, but like, do you think that comes with age? Because I discovered like as you get older, you care a lot less about what people think anyways. So it's pretty juicy.
Yeah, I don't know if it's my chronological age. I think it definitely has to do with hitting my emotional rock bottom and going through my healing journey in earnest, because I used to suppress a lot of things about myself. For example, even because I used to have chronic anxiety, which I don't anymore because don't hide things and I am authentic. So I think that's directly related. But even my anxiety initially, I was labeling it as something bad and that I wanted to go away. But I learned to accept it and also see the gifts in it. So, for example, being
Hmm.
anxious makes you hyper vigilant. And that's what helped me tap into my intuition. So now I have like really great intuitive abilities. So going through that practice of accepting the gifts and my quirks really helped me embrace them as well. But yeah, with I don't know, because I've noticed a lot of people say when you get older, the less you care. So it could be that as well. But yeah, I'm just kind of at the point where I just don't even care if someone doesn't like
Oh, it's
me
the
or
best when you
whatever.
don't care. It's just the best. That
Yeah.
because there are no trophies for giving a crap what everybody thinks. There are no trophies for that.
Yeah.
There's no Oscar for it. And I think you have to get to a certain age before you realize everybody is so busy with their own stuff that they just don't care about what you
Yeah.
don't care about this. They don't care, eh. So, and I learned from trying to mask and trying to follow the rules and trying to do all that, that it is soul
It's
death.
exhausting.
It is soul death. So, and it was hard to, when you're quirky and when you're different and you're unique and you're really proud of that and you're fighting against the anxiety
Yeah.
for that. I think it takes a little bit longer to establish yourself because people are like, okay, this is different. I don't know how to deal, and also people don't necessarily like to be confronted with, authenticity, because then they evaluate how authentic they are. And if they're not authentic, then it makes them uncomfortable. So that's a problem. But it can take you longer to establish yourself in your own unique career that's authentic to who you're supposed to be. But the rewards,
Yes.
oh my God, the rewards are a million times better. Like,
I 100% agree. And I also like what you just brought up because I used to dim myself because it would bring up, if I was shining, it would bring up things in other people. And I would take that personally. And once I stopped taking things personally, that was a huge game changer as well, because you have to
100%.
recognize sometimes, because I've been getting a lot of criticism lately on social media about my glasses. And for me, so the short backstory about my glasses is I grew up, my mom was very critical. She would always criticize my face. And for me, glasses were always a way to hide my face because I just hated looking at my face. But then when I rekindled my inner glow and started loving myself and loving my face, I actually looked at my glasses as a self-expression because it actually draws people to your face when you wear
Yeah.
statement eyewear. So now I kind of
Yeah.
view it the opposite, where it's like I want people to look at my face, where and I'm really proud of that. So to me, glasses embodies this whole journey of like hating my face to loving my face or whatever. And so if someone's criticizing my glasses, it's just like, wow, that just says a lot more about them than anything else.
Well, yeah, because who can who's not busy? Who has got the time
That's how
to
I feel.
then criticize? First of all, I love your glasses, and I said that the first time we chatted on Zoom. Like, but
Yeah.
who got like what? Okay, we need to re-examine our lives if what we're doing with our free
Yeah.
time
Because
is
even if it
telling
takes 30
complete
seconds,
strangers, like,
yeah, that's
what
like 30
is
seconds of
wrong with
negativity.
people?
Yeah.
Oh my God, get a life. It's yeah, you got to definitely not take it personally. It's literally, I have a thing in my book that, um, that assholes have a compelling need to constantly remind the world of who they are.
Yeah.
And they can't help it. Like just like the scorpion that stings the toe, the toad like when they
Yeah.
cross the they
Yeah.
can't help it. They have to broadcast it because it's in their job description. And so it's really important. Now, social media is a nightmare because, then there's plenty of opportunities for assholes to descend on you. And we're
Yeah.
only, so we are going to be affected by mean things because really we're all in seventh grade in the playground still on the side. Um, flashback just then. But the point is, that like, yeah, you will experience a shift when you can see, okay, baby, if you want to project your crap onto me, that's absolutely fine. You know, whatever, it is what it is. You do you do the asshole thing. That's fine. Block. I just like to
Yeah.
block.
Actually,
That's my solution to everything. Is just block. Oh,
I deleted the comment, but only because I'm an energy person and I was like, I don't want negative energy on, like, I don't want this anywhere near my page or anything.
well, yeah. No, look, if you're trying to create a community where people feel safe to be their authentic selves, you don't want people to be attacked,
Yeah.
whoever they are, in the comments. I hate it when people are like, no, you should have the bad ones as well as the good ones. Screw that. That's your
Yeah.
space that you've curated, and you've gone through a lot in your life to have the perspective that you have, and
See, that's how I look at it.
yes, it is absolutely within your right, given how crap everything in the world is right now, in the world is right now. It's your right to create a safe space for yourself. Oh my God.
And speaking of your book, I haven't read it yet, but it is downloaded on my Kindle, and I actually think it's next on my reading list. But tell us about your book and how it came about and all of it.
Right. Well, I had obviously, well, it was odd because like, so I don't know if you can see that there's a lot of self-help books there.
Yeah.
And when have been going through this wilderness for, 10 years, I read a lot of self-help books, and there are brilliant self-help books out there, but there were a couple problems. One was either they were written by someone whose crisis situations weren't exactly what I would consider top shelf crisis, like,
Yeah.
jobs didn't work out for you. Like, okay. Your kid hated you when they were a teenager. Really? Okay. Or what they expected you when you're going through this really tough time is to sit down and read a 50-page chapter and fill out a workbook.
Yeah.
And that is not what it is like when you're in a crisis. And so I wanted to make sure that whatever I wrote, the way that it was going to be structured was if you were in your secret crying closet, like, or like in your car, just trying to pull it together before you go into your house and not lose it, right? And you only had enough energy for one sentence. I wanted you to be able to flip and get one sentence or a paragraph or a story or an activity or whatever, depending on what your mood was. That was the first thing. And I knew because the wilderness for me has been everything. It's been money, it's been grief, it's
Yeah.
been heartbreak, it's been almost everything that could go wrong in a human life, you know, in the Western world, I should say, right? There's obviously people are going through a lot worse things, in other places, but really, it really has been bad. Like I know what it's like to, live on carrots and potatoes. One year I had to shoplift my son's birthday cake because I
Mm,
couldn't afford a cake for him. Like I know what it is like. And
yeah.
so I have all these chapters like, assholes and idiots and money and heartbreak and all that. So I have all of these different things in that. And I combined my background in research because I did documentaries for the BBC forever. And so I'm a really good researcher. And I had been reading all this stuff and I had been reading psychology and communication. And I was starting to put stuff together and find solutions. But I don't mind because I used to be a stand-up. I don't mind bearing my soul. I don't mind spilling the ugly truth. I don't give a crap. Like if people judge me about it, or I don't care.
Yeah.
I have nothing to lose. So, and I thought I was in a unique position to kind of combine all that together. And then the spine of the book is the dots. So the Steve Jobs thing
Mm.
about me not possibly being able to see any way to any dots. And then when I started to connect them, which was so annoying,
Yeah.
it was so annoying to start seeing the dots and going, "Oh, God, he was right. There's just nothing worse than somebody being right." And somebody besides me, obviously. And so each chapter also at the end has the dots that I connected with the assholes, like the things that I learned from the specific interactions with the people. And then, with my heartbreak, I wouldn't have met this person if I hadn't done this, which made me do that. So I wanted people to be able to see things from two different perspectives. One is the emergency stuff that makes you laugh, stuff that makes you learn, stuff that makes you understand why things are going on. But then be able to start looking for the dots because they will show up
Yeah.
eventually. So that's how it works. And then at the end, I've got about 50 pages of resources and notes so that if you want to learn about anything I've written in the book, you can go right to it instead of having to Google and look all over the place for stuff.
Oh, I love that.
Mhm.
First of all, I love the whole concept and idea, but I really love how you were so intentional with organizing it
Yeah.
because I myself have also read a lot of self-help books and I totally get what you're saying. Like sometimes you just need an immediate solution and it's like I don't want to read 200 pages to get to what I'm looking for.
No, yeah, no. You're like I said, you're in your crying closet. You're trying to
Yeah.
pull shit together before you go meet your friends for the movies or, before you're taking your kid to school or whatever else. This is not the time to be reading a 50-page chapter. So, and also the other thing was, and I'm a big believer in this, I am not saying that people can't heal while doing yoga by a waterfall, but most people think in self-help books that healing is yoga by a waterfall, and that's not what healing is. Healing is gross and ugly and
Yeah.
disgusting and makes your face puff up and brings out really like dark stuff. And we have to be really honest about that type of stuff. We can't sugarcoat how ugly this process is going to be. I don't believe that people should be surprised by the process, because what happens is if you're just like, oh, you'll heal, it'll be amazing, blah, blah, blah. Then when people go through, no, this is not what it's supposed to be like, then they blame themselves. If
Yeah.
you tell them the truth about, okay, y'all, this is going to suck. I'm not going to lie, but I'm here to hold your hand through it because I've been through it, and
Yeah.
here, let's go together. Then they don't blame themselves and they go, yes, okay, it's not me. It's just a crappy thing that we have to go through to get to a better place.
I completely agree because I think that's why my dark night of the soul was so jarring because yeah, if you go on Instagram, healing is like sitting in Bali and doing yoga and that yeah, that is not healing. It could be part of your healing
It
journey,
could be
but
the end of the journey.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a nice reward for yourself when you've gotten to come out of the cocoon and you're your little butterfly and you fly to Bali. Amazing. That's great, right? But not while you're in the middle of it. It's, again, it's the barbecue. It's the barbecue. It's the gross, disgusting barbecue. Sticky, meh. That's what healing really is.
Agree.
Mm.
So are you
So
still doing stand-up comedy?
no. I only I only did stand. I mean, I was always tempted. But I was when I was doing documentaries for the Beeb, I wanted to write comedy. All the cool kids were on the fourth floor, and I was on the fifth floor in factual. And
Mm,
no matter what I tried, I couldn't get them to like take me on board, even as a volunteer or whatever. They just wouldn't have me. So there was a there was like a 3-day comedy conference at the BBC, and I got to go one of the days. Well, only going to floor below me, but they had a big question and answer, and the public were allowed to come and ask all these questions. And I was sitting there steaming at the back because all the advice they were giving was like, "That's not true about working in TV. You don't just
mhm.
like that." I've been trying. So I asked my question. I was like, "Look, I've been trying to work for you guys from the floor above you for years. What do I have to do to show you I am serious about writing comedy?" And he looked right at me and said, "Do stand up, run comedy
Interesting.
nights, do it the hard way." And so I did. And it took me a year and a half or 2 years. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do this just to be until I get my break. And so about a year and a half or 2 years, somebody saw my act and they told their executive producer about me. And then the next thing I know, the executive producer gets in touch with me and asks me to send my 5 best jokes. And so I sent my 5 best jokes. And the next thing I knew, I was in a writer's room for children's, coming up with ideas for Burchester, which is like a Muppet, like a Sesame Street Muppet
Okay.
show. That's I was so excited. The whole idea of coming up with lines for Cookie Monster. You have to understand, my generation X heart was just like I was bursting. I was absolutely bursting. And so that's how I got my break. And but the I got a script sold from that writer's room, and the millisecond I sold that script, I dropped out of every single gig I had booked. I was like, it's done now. Done. Don't have to do it anymore.
Oh,
So,
I see. That was just your initiation.
yep. Yeah.
So I feel like, and I don't know if this was your experience, when you see stand-up comedians, first of all, you're usually only seeing the good ones. So they make it look so easy and so fun. When I was in Second City, Chicago, I took a stand-up workshop. It wasn't even like a full-on class. It was so terrifying, and I was like, "I could never do this." I mean, I don't think people realize, first of all, how hard it is because it's a
Really hard.
skill, but also it's just so vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I totally admire
Nightmare,
that.
especially over here because they allow heckling a
Oh,
lot longer. They don't in America. The
yeah, they usually
comedians,
like nip it in the
take them
bud. Yeah.
off. That does not happen over here. It On a very rare occasion, if you have a table like it's a Christmas party or whatever, and there's a table that's so loud that nobody can be heard, then they would kick them out. But nope, you have to deal with the hecklers. Now, I've never had a
Oh,
heckler. I have to say I was really, really lucky. I would have silence,
which is equally as bad.
complete silence. And actually, the first time that happened, there's a famous comedian over here. He's amazing. His name's Justin Morehouse. He's on TV and stuff. And he was, I don't want to say he was my mentor. He wasn't, but he was like an unofficial mentor for me. I think he had a soft spot for me because I was just a mess. And he gave me 10 minutes. It was my first 10-minute slot, and it was my 12th gig. And I thought it was one of those things where when you go into a gig, you kind of know if the crowd is going to be a good crowd or not.
Yeah.
And this was like limousine liberals, cappuccino communists, my people. You know what I mean? I was just like, I got that. Like, I'm good with working class people because that's how I grew up, and I'm good with cappuccino communists as well because I get that sensibility. So I was like, I'm gonna walk this. This is gonna be easy. And about a minute in, it was just I could feel it's so weird. It's almost like a wave. You can just feel the silence. You can feel the hesitation first, and then you can feel the silence. And the problem is the sheep mentality. Nobody wants to laugh if other
Mm,
people aren't laughing, right? Even if they find it funny. So, but the
that
worst bit
makes
was
sense.
9 minutes is very, very long silence. And the worst bit was because it was Justin's showcase, there was a photographer there from the local news. So I could hear the clicks of the camera filming me bombing on stage.
But at least it was a
And
photo, so
it
nobody's
was so
looking at the
bad. Oh,
photo right
I
now
don't
that
Google
they're
myself.
silent.
So there probably is a photo. I don't Google myself, so I don't know. But it was such a bad gig. The comedian who in front of me also died, and he's amazing. And it was so bad that he crawled out the window in the green room and jumped down a floor to leave because you had to exit the building, you had to go back through the crowd,
Oh my
um,
God.
all the way through the crowd. So he
But
jumped out
it
the
sounds
front
like a crowd
window.
issue, though, if more than one person experienced that. Let's just call it
Yeah, I
that.
mean, I don't know, maybe
Oh,
I wasn't mature enough to be able to pivot because I had, when you start out, you've got what
oh,
you work your five
yeah,
minute set and then you build on that. And I wasn't doing that. I mean, I had a 5 minute set, but I was like always trying new things. I didn't realize that you stick like grim death to that 5 minutes until you get 10 and 15 minutes out of it, and then you can start introducing new things. So yeah, but it's diabolical. I remember another time I bombed, and then I went back to the club that I always used to do well at, and this woman was like, we were all having smokes, outside, and this woman went, "Oh, I saw you last week at blah blah blah." She's like, "You were hilarious," and I was like,
why weren't
"Why
you
didn't you
laughing?
laugh?" And she just because I didn't want to be the only one. It's just like
Interesting. And how many other people were sitting there thinking that exact same thing, I wonder?
exactly. So see, sheep mentality gets me again. But
Yeah,
I still recommend it. Like if for anyone who is even just slightly tempted by it, because I think again, Western civilization is one of the hardest things you can do, and it is terrifying. And um, if you can do it, nothing else scares you after that.
yeah,
Like,
that's true.
I speak now in front of hundreds of people, 1,000 people. It doesn't even faze me anymore because I've already survived bear pits. I've already survived having bombing like documented for society. It just doesn't get any worse than that. So, and that is a gift to kind of be not fearless, but to know that you're going to
Yeah.
be okay no matter what happens. That is a gift. So I definitely recommend people do it, like if they're tempted to.
Oh, I love that.
Mm.
So, do you have any last words or any final message that you would like to leave everyone with?
Um, oh God. I think, well, we've talked so much about the healing thing, and one of the things that I always talk about in my book, particularly for people who are struggling or feel that they're alone or isolated, is I learned over the past 10 years how to ask for help and how I
Mm,
wasn't asking for help in the right way. Now, that doesn't mean that when we don't get help from people, we should always blame ourselves and that it's our fault and whatever. That's not what I mean. Sometimes we're around unfortunates who won't help us and they're just users and whatever. That's
yeah.
not what I'm talking about. But what I mean is, like I didn't have any money, and I didn't, I couldn't find work, and it was just I was really, really struggling before I started doing the public speaking and everything. And I learned that because people are dealing with their own crises and stuff. I think we expect people to keep track of our misfortune
Yeah.
when they're just trying to make all the plates spin for themselves. And so instead of asking for help, like, hey, can anybody put a word in for me at their work? Or, hi, yeah, this is month 7 of not being able to find a job or whatever. Like, you think that people would pick up on that and help you. But what I mean is it's important to ask specific things. So like you pick, say you're looking for a job, right? So you pull one friend to the side and you go, maybe somebody who works in HR or somebody who has always had good jobs or whatever, and go, look, I'm really struggling with this. Maybe it's my resume. Will you take an hour or two with me and go through my resume and see if there's something that I'm not seeing
Mm.
that you're seeing, right? Or, if you're struggling with interviews, maybe there's somebody who's a great speaker or really good one-on-one. Sit there and go, will you quiz me? Will you help me? Like we have to give specifics. And then people will know how it is that they can help us.
Oh, I
We can't
love that.
expect people to guess the best way to help us.
Oh, I
So
love that.
that's the message. That's one message, just because a lot of people don't talk about it, and I've discovered that like that is something that has really really helped.
Oh, I love that so much. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, sure.
So, where can everyone find you in your book and what you're up to?
Okay. Well, my book is on my website. It's www.itsamandagraham.com. And I'm on social media. I'm Mindfieldness, like Mine, Fieldness on Instagram. And I'm on LinkedIn as well. And I mean, I'm not on social media so much. I don't really like social media. I
Yeah, that's
feel it's
okay.
an
You don't have to
obligation.
justify it. I
You know
get
what
it.
no, I'm just warning people. They're not going to get like, my life on a platter or whatever. I'm terrible with it. And if I'd be off of it for good if I could. I like one-on-ones and seeing people in real life and
Yeah.
chatting like this, versus struggling to say the right things on social
Yeah.
media.
Well, at the
Yeah.
very least, your book is on your website, and I think
Yes, it's
that's the
not on
important thing.
Amazon. It's not on Amazon or anything because I'm not giving him 30% of my 30% of my book fees. He doesn't need my money. So
Well, thank you so much for being on today. I really loved our conversation.
yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you so much for sending me your book because I've really enjoyed it. And if anybody is watching this who hasn't read the book yet, you should get it. It's really good.
Oh, thank you. Yes,
Mhm.
it's Running in Slippers on my website, runninginslippers.com.
Yeah,
But yes, I will put your website and the name of the book and everything in the description. So
great. Yeah, and drop me a line, anyone, if you've got questions or whatever. I'm always happy to answer, help, whatever.
thank you so much.
Thank you.